Back to tonight's Out in the Open panel, Niger Innes, Crystal McCrary Anthony, and Cenk Uygur. All right, so what is it? Folks are opposed to this mosque or bigots, or do they have the right, based on the arrest today and this Islamic plot against four dicks, have a right to be nervous about Muslims in their neighborhood?
We can't fight the 1 billion Muslims in the world, and it's absurd to say that all Muslims are like the terrorists. That's like saying all Christians are like Jeffrey Dahmer, or take the worst Christians you can find, or the worst Jews or the worst Hindus, and say all Hindus and Jews and Christians are like that. It's of course not right. It's un-American, and they have the freedom of religion. And every community pulls this, because I know they get annoyed by the traffic, and especially the Muslim angle, I know. But you got to let them have their freedom of religion.
Muslims. I understand what you're saying, but are you at all sensitive to their fears about safety?
No. Okay, because then it's the same argument they would have made back in the civil rights era. I don't know, there's some blacks that are, violent, and so we got to be wary of all blacks. And it's a terrible argument.
He's using key phrases like nuisance, my property value will go down, and they're using all these phrases that, promote hysteria. And as you said, this is the same language that has been used to, stop African Americans from moving into certain communities, Italians, Jewish folks. It's ridiculous. It's racist. It's ignorant. It's just outrageous, and to me a waste of the judicial system's time.
What do you think of this minister making a tie between the imam and terrorist groups when there is absolutely no proof of that?
Well, it's in court, so the burden of proof is going to be on him to prove it if there's any there.
So you think that's a valid argument?
I talked with him tonight. I talked with Reverend Dozier tonight, and he happens to be a friend of mine. And I think that, quite frankly, that he is reflecting some of the legitimate concerns that exist within that community. That community is an economically depressed community. It's a community in which the largest prison exists throughout the state of Florida. And there's a concern with Reverend Dozier and a lot of folk within the community itself that either inadvertently or very directly, this new center, which moved from a predominantly white neighborhood to a black neighborhood, it could be a breeding ground potentially, and could tap into the nihilism and the pessimism that already exists within that community.
But the minister wasn't talking about this inadvertently happening. You heard what he said to Susan, that basically there had been contact between Reverend Dozier and members of, the imam and members of a terrorist group.
Well, and again, this is going to be in court, and they're going to be burdens of proof and evidence that has to be proved. But I'm telling you
that it's going to just go to court because some clown like Clayman is suing. He sued Dick Cheney. He sued Al Qaeda. He sued his own mother. These are conservatives who say that they're in favor of tort reform and then sue their mother. Okay, so he'll sue anybody.
Well,
you're libeling poor people.
This is a manifestation of the community's concern. Why is it that this institution, which had been for a couple of decades in a predominantly white community, is making a decision to build this huge center in a predominantly black community? And doesn't the black community doesn't the black community have the right to express itself? A virtually all white commission decided to say that it's okay for them to move into this particular community.
Why do you want to represent the worst in people rather than the best in people? Why do you want to go and say there are some fears and there are some prejudices and let's go represent those? Let's bring out the best in people. I think what Reverend Dozier does is completely bigoted, and to feed into that at all is outrageous. Look what happened in Virginia Tech. A Korean kid shot a bunch of people, right? So are we going to stop Korean churches from coming into neighborhoods? One thing has nothing to do with the other.
And it's indicative of what happened to
you are ignoring the legacy of 9/11 and the fears that many Americans have about Muslims.
But
whether you want to admit it or not.
But their fears are not realities. They're not realities. And to say that it's a reality, to me, to play upon the post-9/11 fear in the same way that we did against the Japanese, after Pearl Harbor, I think that it's shameful. I think it's unfair, it's unfounded, and the fact of the matter is the vast majority of practicing Muslims in this country around the world are not extremists or fundamentalists, and that's not right.
In that community are
that's
Christians.
Not right.
They're not Muslim, and they have the right to express themselves and be heard, and they weren't heard by that commission.
Unfounded.
All right, and you've had your time to express yourself this evening. Goodbye.